Hey y'all, welcome back to another bonus episode of The Path to Redemption. It's a Hammer 40,000 Dark Angels focus podcast. We're trying really to focus on just the First Legion and how we can make better of all aspects of this hobby. So, once again, another bonus episode, new hotness coming out with the Dark Angels Codex just a couple weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, we brought you, was it last week? I think it was last week, actually, right?
Yep.
Yeah, last week we put out an episode about our first list ideas, and Bailey's come back with some new changes, and he's going to a tournament here in about a week. So we're going to review that, and we got some new tech going on here, so we could talk about this in a more visual manner. So with that being said, let's hit the list. So first of all, Bailey, what it is? What do you got going on here?
All right, so what I'm looking at here on my list is I've dropped some of the stuff I had before to bring a Outrider detachment.
Okay.
And I decided to drop my Chaplain and bring Samael because I realized that no matter which version of the Chaplain I brought, the Deathwing Jump Pack one or the Ravenwing Biker one, it's only about 10 points just running Samael. And I was just like, well, Samael has the best of both worlds because he flies, and but he also has the high toughness of being on a bike. Okay. And he also has a heavy cannon, and he does a couple other bonus things that don't require me to roll dice, which means I don't fail, right? That's always the key thing is, when I'm praying my prayers with the Chaplain, I can still technically fail them. Whereas with Samael, I can just be like, you always are getting that reroll ones bubble, and he can just pick something that's Ravenwing in the command phase that's near him to get full rerolls.
Very true. Okay, what about your other HQ choices here?
All right, so I have in a patrol detachment Tech Marine that's the Master of the Forge, but I didn't give him a Warlord trait because I was trying to save CP, and he's there to do a role that does not require a Warlord trait. The Forge Warlord trait targets Dreadnoughts, and I don't have any, so there was no need to give him that. And I don't really want him to be fighting or shooting or doing anything other than healing tanks, so I gave him the upgrade he needed to heal tanks, and that's what he does. And make them more efficient by giving them +1 to hit, which that target for that is going to be my Gladiator Valiant that's in that patrol.
Okay.
And then the Primaris Librarian, I made him a Chief Librarian, so I gave him the upgrade for Chapter Command. And then I did spend a command point to give him a Warlord trait because I gave him the Warlord trait that's specific to the Chief Librarian, so he has +1 to cast. So that way all of the harder 7 cast spells are now 6, which is a little bit more manageable. And then I decided to give him Mindworm, Aversion, and Righteous Repugnance, because my plan is to stick him either near or in the Impulsor with the 5 Blade Guard that are in that same patrol detachment. And basically he fills the role with those spells that a Judicar, an Ancient, or a Captain would do, where he can make an enemy unit fight last with Mindworm. He can also then give the Blade Guard full rerolls in both hitting and wounding in close combat, whereas a Captain or a Chapter Master would only give him reroll 1s or reroll hits, so he's doing both. Or you're getting the +1 to hit from the Ancient. Now, he doesn't let them fight when they die like an Ancient does, but the Ancient does give them, the Blade Guard veteran Ancient gives them +1 to hit, but I feel like I can mitigate that by just giving them full rerolls. So they'll hit on 3s, but they'll reroll 1s and 2s, as opposed to the hit on 2s, and I guess if you had a Captain in there too, it would reroll 1s. But then the problem is that you're spending more points and you're filling up slots in that Impulsor. And the problem then becomes if you only end up having 3 Blade Guard in there, all the enemy has to do is ping one of them, and then they uncover all of the characters, and they snipe all the characters, and they're dead. Whereas if I have 1 character and 5 Blade Guard, they have to kill 3 Blade Guard to try and snipe the character.
And best of luck killing
3
Deathwing Blade Guard. That sounds like a tough choice. So yeah. I do want to comment on the psychic power choices you made. So let's just confirm, Chief Librarians, when you make them that upgrade, I don't do very often because I'm a big fan of Ezekiel. They can take 3 powers, right? They can take 3? Okay.
Correct. But I only cast 2.
You can only cast 2. Do you get the extra deny from being the Chief Librarian, just that Ezekiel has?
Yes.
Okay. And you get the +1 to cast on all powers, not just a Terramancy. Fair enough. So I know. So you didn't take Engulfing Fear, which I think is an interesting choice. Why not?
Because I'm running this librarian to fill a specific role that would have been filled by the Judicar or by the captain. And if I'd run a captain or a Judicar and run one less Blade Guard vet, then I wouldn't have taken Mindworm because I would have thrown a Judicar in there and he would have just given something -1 or fight last. Or I wouldn't have taken Righteous Repugnance because I would have just run the captain and the captain would have given them rerolls. Or made him a chapter master and give him full rerolls. And so I like the whole, turn off obsec on your opponents, but the thing is I also don't have the Ancient with the Steadfast trait or a character with Rights of War. So I'm not, as powerful as that is, I just couldn't find a way to do it without eating up a lot of command points, because I'm trying to keep as much open as I can, but at the same time run key things like running the Ravenwing Apothecary, getting that +1 to cast, since I'm putting a lot of resources and a lot of my game plan around having this wizard cast these spells. I need to commit command points to make sure that they actually go off.
Okay, fair enough. That's well reasoned.
And that's sort of where it is.
Yeah, okay, so Mindworm, you're making him fight last, which is very effective, especially if you're fighting big critters. And that can also be helpful to make it so that you don't have to interrupt. Righteous Repugnance is just so good on Blade Guard, just like I said last week. It's real tasty. And a version... So what I'm kind of seeing here is that you've got like a big, massive Deathwing infantry that are hard to move. They're not OBSEC, but still... Right. If you're going to charge into this mass, right, you're going to be potentially -1 to hit, -1 attack, and fighting against some of the most lethal close combat units in the game. So it's just a tough proposition. Like if you want to sit on something and the only thing you can do to make it better would be to get OBSEC, I think. But that would require a bit of engineering. So we can move on from that. All right, let's talk about these two small units of attack bikes.
So I was looking at some of my anti-tank options, and so in the previous list I had that Dark Talon, and the thing with the Dark Talon is that I have to roll super lucky, and I have to be shooting some sort of light vehicle or a dreadnought, and then roll like crazy to kill it in one blow with him. And what I keep finding is the way that you run him out there, he starts shooting stuff. He doesn't necessarily kill anything, and then their whole army dunks on it, and I just threw away
200 points,
It's in my opinion. Yeah. This is basically what was happening. So in order to replace that, I was like, okay, I want to have some sort of anti-tank, and so that's why I went with multi-meltas on these things, and they're smaller, they're faster in a sense, because I can give them the high-speed focus, or not high-speed focus,
full throttle.
Full throttle, so I can move them around. And the other thing is that because they're small, they're not on flight stands, I can hide them. So if I don't go first, one of my main anti-tank things doesn't just get targeted off the board because it's a big flyer on a small board. Everyone sees it, they shoot it, it's dead. And so that's sort of the idea behind the attack bikes, is that they're a smaller unit. They can be hidden. They have a lot of punch. They have wounds. They have the T5. They have the invuln for... being Raven Wing and moving around, and if they get if I advance them, they get. Hold on a second. Excuse me. If I advance them, they go to a 4-up. Turn 1, they get that extra move, and they can advance and shoot their heavy weapon at a -1. And you get 2 shots now with the multi-melta, so it's not as intimidating as it was before when you only had the 1 shot in previous editions.
Yeah. So I think.
But it's just supposed to be like a smaller mobile, hidey fire base.
Yeah, I think that so they're great because they're OBSEC, and they're going to help you control objectives. And two Melta shots is definitely nothing to be trifled with. They're going to hit on 4s if you move, and they're going to hit on 2s if you don't. So they're not really going to be a super valuable target or a super ideal target for Samael's Chapter Master tactic or Chapter Master ability. But they're definitely not something. Okay, maybe they'll help you in a pinch. I think if you're using squat units of attack bikes as like a primary anti-tank weapon, then you're going to need units of 3 of them, and that's not what I have here. But how it works out. So we'll go with that. So,
Well, and the other thing too is that since they're small, like I said, they're easier to hide, and then you can put them in different spots, and you can block out parts of the board against deep strikers with them, and they can sit on. I don't feel bad if I leave a 55-point multi-melt on an objective to cap it, while the rest of the army moves around. Whereas if I left, like almost a 200-point unit of guys sitting on an objective in the back.
Yeah.
And
there's some valid Deathwing builds that'll do that, where you have like a big unit of relic Terminators that'll just sit on an objective and use the special Dark Angel secondary to just get points for doing that. Yeah, this list doesn't seem like it's going to want to do that. So, okay, your bike squad, was it 3 bikes? Three dudes in this bike squad right here?
Yes, and part of the running in this Outrider and just the bare bones bike squad, part of this is the Highlander format. Right. I can only run the 1 bike squad. So that's why I brought the Outriders too, and I just want the way I keep trying to use I used in my previous list my big bike squads. I was trying to use them as light cab and use them to sneak in to try and score secondaries and move around in the background instead of using them for that glorious grand charge, because I realized if I'm playing a lot of Space Marines, there's no point in glorious grand charging a squad of bikes into other Space Marines unless it's turn 3. So by being the smaller squad, the min squad size, they're easier to hide, and they don't cost as many command points to use to do the Swift Strike or to do the hunt, to do the pre-game deployments. And also that by being smaller and cheaper, like in my last game I played, this dude did this pre-game deployment, brought up his Rhino so he could kick out his Khorne Berserkers and jump them into my middle objective, or my deployment zone objective turn 1. What I should have done, and I didn't think about it until after he'd moved his Rhinos, I should have then gone, oh, you're going to do that? Well, I'm going to use the hunt and run my bikes out from this bit actually I had my bikes too far back, but if I'd put them where I originally thought about putting them up in the front, then I could have run them out, blocked off this area where the Berserkers were going to end up coming through, and kept them out of my deployment zone and out in the open where I could have shot them, instead of them rampaging through the middle of my army and forcing me to stay in my deployment zone and then dedicate all my shots at them, which then allowed him to then collapse on me. Whereas now I was like, oh yeah, if I put those 3 bikes there, hunted them, they would have run out there, screened off that gap, and they would have had to, they would have died to the Khorne Berserkers, but the Khorne Berserkers would have been stuck out in the open and away from my army.
I think,
or the core of my army.
I think I see what you're saying. Let's just move over here to the game table real quick. Okay, so I think I see what you're saying here is we're going to take these bikes, and if we deploy them somewhere like around like here, then if you have an opponent that can do pre-game moves, then the hunt is a great way to kind of preempt that. It does depend on who has first turn, because remember, the hunt game movement ability, and an opponent that has scout moves like the Khorne Berserkers, was it not Forlorn Fury? That's the Blood Angels. Khorne, Blood Angels, basically the same thing.
Yeah.
Whatever the I think they're Termin. Yeah, they have one that a unit infantry can use, if I remember the Faith and Fury well. But so whoever gets first turn gets to resolve their scout move first. But if you move them, your normal move out, you have to stay 10 inches or 9 inches away from enemy models, but you can move them out and block off a unit.
Yep, just like that.
You can basically create yourself some breathing room so that they can't run a giant unit of Death Company or Berserkers or whatever right into your unit, right? And so this is going to require a little bit of thinking when you deploy, to make it so that you can see that move coming and you have the option to respond to it based on who goes first. Or honestly, what you could do is because if they go first and they're going to do a pregame move, you can just use your hunt to move away from it, right? If they do their pregame move, then you can move up. You can get 9 inches away from them, and you may not be able to completely block them from doing the move. Like, for example, let's say this Impulsor is their Rhino, and they're over here. If they're doing a pregame move, if they get first turn, and they're going to move like this, well, I can't move. Like, when I do my pregame move, I have to stay 9 inches away, right? So now, 9 inches from here is basically there, right? So I could, however, move up to that point so that when they jump out, they're going to, crush all over these guys, but at least they're not going to make it onto my objective, right? And holding off that turn 1 objective score is definitely something that you want to prevent from happening. Okay, I think I see what you're saying. Yeah, it's going to require a little bit of forethought, but it's definitely a good idea. I did want to ask you one other question here real quick. What about your... So you said it's a Highlander game. Why do you have 2 squads of attack bikes for the Highlander game?
Oh, you're right. I can't do that. So I should just make them 1 squad of 2, and it still sort of does what
honestly,
I want.
I like that better if you have 1 squad of 2, because now they are a legitimate target for Samael, and 4 shots from a multi-melta is something, and you've still got your 3, you got your Outriders, you got your basic bikes. I think that's fine. I think that's probably the better choice. 1, it's legal, and 2, it's honestly better. So, and one other thing I noticed when you sent me your list was that if you're in Battle Scribe, you have these Ravenwing bikes right here equipped with bolt pistols. Do you not have the points to give them a special weapon, or do you want to? Because in my opinion, either special weapon or chainsword is the best way to do it.
Yeah, I just kind of was playing with it real quick. That's one of those things, when you're doing the final edit, like I got to go back and make this 1 attack bike squad instead of 2, because I'm not allowed to do that. Is to go in and be like, okay, I don't want bolt pistols, I want chain swords, and because the chain sword's just so much better than the bolt pistol, because now it has the -1, and then when you get the assault, it's -2, and that's just way more nasty than having the
+1 attack.
And the +1 attack. Yeah, it's just so much better. So I'm definitely go into your... That's almost worth... I mean, I know I'm one of these cheapskates. I should probably be supporting Battle Scribe. I know, and I'm a bit of a cheapskate about it. But if that's one reason to donate and support them, because all that's done for free, and I greatly appreciate that. Is that then once you donate, one of the things you can do is save, so that way you don't always have to go back and do that. Which would save me a lot of time, because you can just say that's one of your favorite units. Oh, bikes where instead of default bolt pistols, they're defaulted as chain swords, and that would definitely make my life a lot easier. So I should take find the money and donate.
Yeah,
so
I'm a big fan of Battlescribe. I donate and support, and one of the favorite feature that I get from that is that you can synchronize your lists to Dropbox, so that if I edit a list on my phone, it shows up persistent on my computer and on my tablet. Right, so they can access the same list from all 3 devices. So that's the key functionality for me. All right, so let's move on to your patrol detachment. Talk to me about Assault Intercessors.
So this was a choice that was made right at the end of the list, because I was 5 points short of running Eradicators, and I had to find 5 points somewhere, and I went for the Assault Intercessors. Now, I loved painting my Assault Intercessors. I loved building them. Some of the stuff in this list, I will admit, it's because I just enjoy them. Maybe it's not the most competitive, but it fits more the playstyle that I like. The Assault Intercessors, because they actually can still fight twice. They're the only Space Marine unit that can still do that, which is awesome. They're packing those chain swords right out the get-go. They've all got one. And so one of the things I've noticed in some of these games I've played is that because my army doesn't have, outside of basically the Blade Guard, I didn't have a lot of bully units in terms of I'm going to go put this in the middle of the board because that's where it wants to be, and if somebody wants to come remove them, they might regret it. Because a regular Intercessor squad doesn't have the same fear factor, I think, as having Assault Intercessors, because they're base 4 the turn you charge them, and then that means that if I spend 2 CP, they're going to be base 8 attacks.
Is it 2
if
or
you
is
don't
it 3?
Kill all
is it 2
of them,
or is it 3 for the fight twice?
Well, because they're 2 base.
No, I'm talking CP.
I think it depends. Oh, it's 2 CP. It's 2 CP now. They dropped it 1 because it only targets them.
That's actually makes it a lot more attractive. Yeah. All right.
And so if you think about it as these guys have 8 attacks, you run them. You run into the middle of the board, and if there's another infantry squad like them there, right? Yeah, they want to go in there and play, because even without the shock assault and fighting twice, they are 3 base attacks. So that's 15 attacks, 16 with the sergeant, because they're base 2, and then the chainsword, and then they get the extra attack for charging, and then they can fight twice on top of that, and then you throw in all the other Dark Angel stuff of, the Honor Viamat can run over to them if I need to, and, bring one back, heal one, because they've got 2 wounds. I
think there's some good synergy here with Righteous Repugnance as well, because, hitting on 2s or 3s with 15, 16 attacks twice and that's the turn you hit on twos. The turn after combat, hitting on threes with 20 something attacks. The first turn of combat, so that's 40 attacks, and you're rerolling all hits and all wounds. That's going to do a lot of damage to a lot of hordes.
Yeah.
And don't forget the additional movement you can get. So the additional movement you get by activating twice, and that's another 3 inches of pile in, another 3 inches of consolidation, and that'll clear a screen and get you onto an objective. Incursors, tell me about your incursors. Why do you like them?
I like the I understand there's a big thing on infiltrators. I think they're expensive, and I think that infiltrators' usefulness is in their denial bubble for deep striking. But once you get past that, what else do they actually do? I'm not impressed with their gun or any of their other additional rules. Whereas if you look at incursors, they have rules that allow them to ignore any sort of modifier to their ballistic skill, or modifiers to their ability to shoot. So if you're running into Eldar, you're shooting through dense cover, you're shooting at Calyxus Assassin. If someone brings one of those, they just go, yeah, whatever, dude. We're just going to shoot you like we normally would.
The dense cover is definitely a good use case for that. Okay.
And there's a lot of that at this tournament because the guy that runs the event loves putting out obstacles and which count as dense cover. All out in the open, he really likes to break up open space with those -1 to hit obstacle walls. So there is going to be a lot of dense cover on the board. So those guys are just going to be like, yeah, whatever.
They're close combat knives. Those are the ones that if you roll a 6 to hit, you get 2 hits, right?
They got rid of that and just made them straight up -1 to begin with.
Once again, anytime you've got an ability to trigger additional hits,
they used to do that.
If you have an ability to trigger additional hits, you having a power that lets you reroll all hits is a real. You can really make some. Make some magic happen there. So okay. Yeah, I agree. I like incursors. My play style tends to lend itself more to infiltrators, but the fact that incursors can deploy forward as well, this kind of goes in what we were discussing before about using them to create a bubble around where you think a potential pre-game move is going to happen. So, okay, yeah, I like that. All right.
The other thing with them is, remember, because they're Phobos, one of the things I did in the last game I played is I used them and I deployed them back, used them to screen out a section of the board, and once my opponent had deep struck everything, I then, he tried to charge him and failed, I then used the stratagem to pull them off the board and put them in strategic reserves, and then redeploy them to the opposite side of the board away from the Khorne Berserker Terminators, and then use them to deploy a Scrambler. So it's not just about the deploying forward, because the problem is that I used to have 2 squads, and the problem is I kept trying to deploy one forward, and it just kept springboarding my enemies into me. So I thought, you know what? Scrap the second squad, because all they do is die. I'll run this one squad. I'll put it in the back corner, screen off an area, and then when I need to go forward, I need to press the enemy deployment zone for line breaker. I need to press the enemy deployment zone if I want to do deploy scramblers, or something like that, or repair teleport home or something. Then I can pull them off in the middle of the game when most armies don't have something that does that, and go, yeah, remember that part where you ran on top of me to try and kill me? You've opened up the entire back of the board. I'm going to go back there and score points now, and you have to either halt your attack to try and stop me, or just ignore them and let me score points.
Units have a bunch of interesting synergy with the Dark Angel's secret agenda as well. So if you do like the repair teleport or deploy scramblers, you just secret agenda that, and then for the first 3 turns of the game, they don't know what it is until your Phobos unit pops out of reserve into the backfield, deploys a scrambler. Crap. And then 1 CP, you pull him off the board. Next turn, he comes back up in your board edge, deploys a scrambler, and there's 10 points he's not going to be able to do anything about. And the psychological impact of not knowing what that third objective is really going to make some people. So I like this choice. Honestly, I think it's a good one. Okay, let's talk about the Gladiator. What do you think the Gladiator is going to be in this list? And how is it not going to get shot off the board on turn 1?
Part of it... Well, I'll admit, part of its inclusion is a vanity project, because I had a lot of fun painting mine, and I had a lot of fun decorating it with the extra Dark Angels upgrade sprue bits for tanks. And the couple games I've played a lot of games with it actually, and if you can, the tables we're playing on, there's a lot of big terrain pieces. They're not the thin Nova L's. My buddy Chris, that's running the tournament, he's got sort of the regular normal styrofoam L's. So they're big, thick, meaty, and they're tall L's, and he's got a lot of them. Like every board's got like 3 or 4 of them. So there's going to be some in the middle, and there's going to be some in your deployment zone.
Okay.
No matter what deployment zone it is, and which side you pick. So there is a place to hide there. Based on what I know of going and playing over there a lot, and playing with Chris and talking about the importance of not just for Space Marine players. I'm not saying, Chris, make sure I have an elf so I can put my Gladiator back there. Everybody wants that. Yeah. Everybody wants a place to hide their high valuable unit turn 1 so it doesn't just get deleted, because watching your coolest stuff get deleted before you get to play with it.
That's a feel bad experience.
Cool.
Yeah, that's how the Nova L's started. It's like they said, hey, these are going to be big enough to hide an Imperial Knight. So, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And that's fair, because like you don't want to just drop your giant knight on the board and then pick it right back up and put it in its phone.
I 100% support a vanity project. Like if you paint cool models, you should play with cool models. Remind me again what the loadout on the Valiant is.
Oh, this is the one that I looked at. All the thing with a lot of the other ones, the other variants, is that there's other things in the army that do the exact same thing. This one, it's the most expensive one, but I think it has the most just in-your-face impact when you bring it out. So this is why I have the Tech Marine to give him +1 hit, so he's hitting on 2s. This is the guy that's packing 2 multi-meltas and twin las talons. So this guy's got 4 shots with his melta guns, or his multi-meltas, and then he's got 4 shots with his las talons. So that's 8 high-powered, high AP, high damage shots. And then you can throw a missile on him. I paid extra, and I was like, I went all out. So I threw a machine gun on top of him. So he has a little bit of anti-infantry in case he needs it. In case he gets charged, he can use his machine gun to try and clear out some stuff. And then I gave him the thing so he can use the stratagem to make himself -1 to hit. So when he does come out and he does get his turn in, if people, when he gets counter battery fire and gets the retaliatory shooting, I can try and give him a little more survivability because he doesn't have an invuln. And then, that's it. He's got the missile, which adds just some extra, damage, high impact damage. The machine gun for trying to clear out some space, and then he has the asset that lets him be -1 to hit
the auto
for
launchers.
The smoke screen,
they're T8, right? They're toughness 8. So that's an important break point because so many people are using Melta these days as their primary method of anti-tank. So and the fact that you can move him, like keep him protected out of line of sight, and then turn 1, move him out into line of sight, shoot, and then give him, and he still hits on 2s, shoot, and then hopefully has the resiliency to weather the return firepower, and your chief Tech Marine, your Master of the Forge, can repair him back up to his top file. It's all just going to be about developing fire lanes for him. So, okay, all right. It
used to be way gross with the old Devastator doctrine where he had the extra range, and then you made Tech Marine the brilliant strategist, so he could always keep kicking the guy back into Devastator, so he was always at max bonus range. And that Gladiator Valiant.
All right, let's now here's the part that I don't completely understand what you've done, and I want to talk about this 2-man company veteran team in a drop pod. What's going on here?
All right, and this. So I got into the debate with some guys that are on the Welsh national team on Twitter, Ines Wilson and Tom Layton, who's also on the Honest Wargamer podcast, because they hate deploy scramblers, because I guess over in England everyone's figured out how to deploy against it, and people, like, if you take it, people just like automatically, like, they build their list, they screen it out, you can't do it. All right, well, the people I play with, I take it a lot, and they don't do that, and I found the most efficient, cheapest way to do it, in the cheekiest way, so where, like, if it doesn't work, I'm out 110 points. If it does work, 110 points just scored a bazillion secondary points for me, and at the end of the game, my opponent's sitting there scratching their head like, why did I just ignore that 110-point unit? It scored, not only helped me score deploy scramblers, but the drop pod and that squad both count for line breakers. So if you leave a little gap, if you have an L and you didn't put anything back there, I drop the drop pod and those guys back behind that L, they deploy a scrambler, and now every turn they're back there, they're scoring 4 points on line breaker, and they're getting that one scrambler that I need for deploy scramblers. Or they can teleport homer. And the thing is, by being the 2-man squad, if you don't drop the doors on the drop pod actually blocks line of sight to the squad of combat vets. So if you drop them in a corner, you can screen them.
All right, so
with the drop pod.
So they're equipped, according to the list here. Both of them are just bare bones: bolt pistol, chainsword, bolt pistol, chainsword. Have you given consideration to try and find a way to give them like a combat shield so that they go to the 2-up, 5-up? Because Dark Angel's company veterans are the only ones that are allowed to take combat shields. And I think that's actually a really exciting option. Because you could actually, you can spend a few more points, and they could be, have a power weapon or a lightning claw and like a combi weapon and a combat shield.
Yeah, and I've thought about doing different things to just make this like a high impact unit, but the thing that I keep running in the back of my head is, why are they in the list? Are they there to be my high impact? They drop in, they come out, they have invulns and high saves and crazy guns. And the answer is that's not why I put them in the list. I put them in the list because they're the cheapest, smallest thing that I can put into a drop pod. Like, they're cheaper than running a character, they're cheaper than running TAC Marines, they're cheaper than all these other things. And they have a small profile, so they're very easy to hide, and their sole job is to sit there and go, yes, please empty out your deployment zone, because I'm going to go in there and score points. And the fun part with being the drop pod is that if they leave the whole turn 1, I'm going in there turn 1. I'm going in there turn 1, I'm dropping them in, I'm deploying a scrambler, and I'm scoring 4 points on line breaker. And if you left me a really good spot with line of sight blocking terrain, I'm just going to sit there and rack up points for 110 points. And I know, like I said, I talked to those guys from Wales. They're really cool, and they were like, yeah, that's 110 points wasted, dude. And I'm like, but I said, yeah, but it works. Like, nobody's like counter deploying me. I don't know why. They just don't. And they're like, well, if that's how they play in America, keep doing it, dude. I'm like, I'll just do it until people change, until the meta adjusts to the fact that I do this. I'll just keep doing it. And once people are like, okay, we've had enough of this drop pod veteran thing, I'll drop it and run something else. But I struggle. This is my weakest part of my game, is getting secondary points. And I know my buddy Chris and I, we debate, because he always picks his he doesn't build lists with secondaries in mind. He just builds his list to score primaries, and then he goes, and now I'm going to pick my secondaries based on the game I'm playing, which is the intent of the game. The problem is I'm really bad at that. And so the way I found to get around that is I look at the secondaries and I go, okay, how can I make sure that I can always score these secondaries, because I figured out how to do it. Like, I'm always trying to do it, so I've gotten really good at doing it. So that's what I do. Right. And that's where this came into be. Is I've been running it since before the Space Marine Codex came out in September. Like, when 9th just dropped, I was doing this, and I've been doing it. I don't do it every game, but every couple of games since 9th edition's dropped, I've been running this unit combo. Sometimes I've run 2. But that ended up being overkill. Just one was just enough, and it's just 110 points of, I'm going to score a lot of victory points, because the game's about scoring victory points. It's not about killing things anymore. And although some of the things you can do is kill stuff to get victory points, but I found that it's something I can control. If there's a gap, I can go into that gap and I can score points, and the only way you can stop me from doing that is you have to come stop me. You have to, instead of going after primaries, instead of going after my actual cool stuff that you probably want to kill because it's going to kill you, you have to go mess around with this cheapo unit that's all it does. Now, I did take the chainsword because since they're combat vets, they have an extra attack, and now they're up to 3 attacks, now they're up to 4 attacks, and so if I had to kind of go in and bully a unit off of, if they left a 5-man,
well, I don't know if attack squad, but like squad. 5 cultists, grots, servitors. A lot of Space Marines are using servitors for that kind of objective sitter role. Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's. Yeah.
And run and bully it a little bit.
They take a little bit of effort to score, right? Because they got 2 wounds each. They got a 3-up save, right? And they have a lot of attacks. So. Okay, especially if you can use the drop pod as a piece of mobile terrain, right, to really control access to get to them, and then just sit there and deploy the scramblers, get your engage, get your line breaker. All right, yeah, it's you're giving yourself a piece of tech. You spend 5% of the points in your list to, give yourself what you think is a pretty wide variety of options on how to get some secondary points. I would just caution that the only thing you need to be really careful at here is don't drop the thing in the back corner. Don't put that drop in the front where it can be used against you. So, okay. Let's do it. Let's see what happens. All right, let's move over. And what I would like to do now is let's go over again what the games you're going to be playing, what the missions you're going to be playing are, and then I want to talk about briefly the meta that you're expecting. So, give me 3 archetypes, 3 lists that you think that you're going to have problems with this list.
I'm going to see the counterplay in the fact that there's going to be at least 2 other Dark Angels armies out there, and they're probably going to be running the Terminators. That's where I think having the Blade Guard vets are an efficiency choice, because what's the point of having something with a Power Fist or a Thunderhammer when I'm never going to get to wound them on 3s or 2s anyway? Whereas with the Power Sword, I'm not really losing a lot of efficiency there.
Well, yeah, if they're doing Penitent Remembrance, then your Mastercrafted Power Sword's going to have a hard time. But if you can put enough, and like they can put just a large number of wounds through, and you'll still be able to kill 4 or 5 of those guys, even with Penitent Remembrance, I think.
It looks like there might be a Mortarion based on, because Chris was sending me, he's like, oh, this guy was like, he's practicing, this thing's scary, and he sends me a picture of Mortarion. I'm like, well, I figured there was going to be somebody running those, because there's at least 3 or 4 Death Guard players that I know of that are going to the tournament. I don't know if they're all running them, running Death Guard, but I know there's potential for a lot of them, so I'm like, okay, well, that's to be expected.
Okay, go ahead.
So that's where having the Gladiator, having the Eradicators, having the attack bikes, that's where having all that Melta stuff in comes in. I mean, I haven't played when Mortarion first came out. I had one and I used him and it was great because I was playing Death Guard in 8th edition, and then I sold that army to a buddy that really wanted to play Death Guard but didn't want to play them because I had them. And I'm like, dude, I've played these guys so much, I'm ready to try something else. Just take my army and I'll play something else because this is what you really want. So that was cool to be able to help a friend out. But then he didn't really play with him because people found ways to just kill him. And it sounds like that's sort of where things are now, because I still talk to that friend. He's like, yeah, the cult of Don Husin. He's like, because he's on the Death Guard page. He's like, yeah, these guys, he's cool, but he's not an auto include for Death Guard lists. And it's like, yeah, he's there, he's scary, you got to deal with him, and if you don't, he is going to kill you. And like I said, that's why I have Melta and stuff hidden in. My Blade Guard can go in there and try and fight him because they'll get rerolls against him, either from the Wizard or from the Librarian or from the Assault Doctrine.
Mortarion takes away people's rerolls right now. So don't count rerolls against Mortarion.
Oh, okay.
But okay, so you think there's going to be, so you're thinking Dark Angels Terminator spam. You're thinking Death Guard potentially with Lord of War with Mortarion. And what else?
In terms of, there's just going to be other Space Marine lists, and that's probably going to be the other big one. Now, I know there's going to be, I think there's going to be like a Thousand Suns player potentially. There's going to be a Tyranid player. I know there's some dudes in here that have just Tau. So I know that's going to be a thing. But I think the other big army is that there's going to be some variation of Space Marine that I got to deal with, and that's where like the bikes aren't as cool because they don't do 2 damage on any of their guns or like my regular bikes. And then, unless you're in the Assault Doctrine, they have a hard time clearing out, even, like a 5-man squad of any kind of Marine anymore.
Yeah.
Now that they're all 2-1s at least. And that's just, it's going to be that mirror matchup of like the Blood Angels, the Imperial Fist. There's this one dude I think is coming. He played at our last doubles tournament we had down there, and he had, he can't run. Well, he can run. I think he can run one group of 3, but he had those servo turrets on Imperial Fists. Like, I didn't know those things could move. I thought you just dropped them and that's where they were, but these things move. And so he was just really good at hiding them right on the edge of cover and then popping them out 3 inches so they can shoot, and then, just blasting you away. So that's something I gotta worry about. The one other guy he's good. His name's Joe Wright. He's a really cool dude. He invited me up to his house for an Apocalypse game a few years ago. That was awesome. But he's really good. He and this other guy named Aaron Shepard. He's on the Close Encounters or Dank Encounters of the Fifth Kind.
Okay.
On our YouTube channel. He's also one train. He ran a town R at a 1,500 point game just because he's like, hey, you can do that, and I have one, so let's do it. And but don't think that he had Forge World as a crutch. He's a really good player because he and Joe won a doubles tournament a few years ago around here, and they just had this disgusting Iron Hands list back when Iron Hands were disgusting, and so I know they have the models. I think Aaron's he's running Custodes Guard Army. That's going to be really rough.
So okay,
because he's been talking to me about it.
What kind of Custodes?
I don't know what particular kind of, like which faction or sub faction of them are. Just that there's going to be Custodes in one detachment because you can only run 2 for this tournament.
All right.
And in the other detachment, there's going to be Guard. And to me, that means cheap obsec bodies, tanks, and artillery. And then he's going to have a big punchy fast fist of Custodes somewhere. And I'm going to get punched by Custodes, shot by Guard, and then he's just going to cover my dead bodies.
Let me make a recommendation.
Guardsmen to take objectives.
So I'm hearing a couple places. So you're thinking Custodes, right? You're thinking Death Guard, which makes you think Mortarion, Blight Lords, Death Shrouds, stuff like that. And then you're thinking, and then you're talking Dark Angels, Terminators. So what I'm hearing is a lot of just really hard melee units, which rely on 4-up invul saves. And Thousand Suns, which maybe you've got Ahriman, you've got Magnus. Yep. So what I would recommend is maybe take the Honor of Vehement off your Ravenwing Apothecary and put the Reliquary of the Repentant on it. Because that way you can push forward and get within, use full throttle, get that aura within 3 inches of something, and then your Melta and your Plasma is gonna do a lot of damage. I think probably going to be a good tech choice for you. What do you think?
The only thing I caution on that is the fact that because the Apothecary is on the board to be sort of at the front line, but just far back enough where he doesn't get targeted, giving him that relic and forcing me to move him forward where he can get killed. That's why I didn't do that in the first place. But I hear what you're saying, and I'll try that. Like I said, I got 2 practice games. I got one tomorrow, and I got one on Wednesday, and I will run that relic.
I think the idea here is, like, if you have to trade your Apothecary for, whatever his big brick of Custodes, or trade it for Magnus, I think that's a good trade. Because Magnus is gonna wreck you with all his wound output, and unless you can get your Blade Guard in there in combat with Magnus, and even then, that 3-up invul save is going to be a problem. So I think that the ability to turn a 3-up invul to a 5-up and a 4-up to a 5-up, even if you end up having to trade the Apothecary to do it, is probably not a bad idea, right? And just the option to have it happen is something that is going to change people's play style. So, like, what is he going to do? Not throw Mortarion in your face? No, he's going to throw Morty in your face. The death, your Deathwing go in, and the Apothecary's right next to him. Like, come on, guys, and then they just aren't. I think that might be a worthwhile change. So, let's think about it. And what I'd like to do now is let's take a look at your first mission. Your first mission is from the GT 2020 book, Surround and Destroy. So this is a Dawn of War style deployment, and it's going to be 6 objectives. Is this a hold 2 or a hold 3?
Ooh, that's a good question.
How about this? What I want to see you do is, let's say you're setting up against the Death Guard, right? And let's say there's a Mortarion, right? I want you to go ahead and try and deploy how you would, given that there's a Mortarion in play, right? And Death Guard with a couple of Plague Burst Crawlers, Death Shroud Terminators, just like that kind of typical big brick of Death Guard with a Mortarion. So go ahead and deploy on the red side of the board, and I just want to see how you would plan that, and we'll talk about what secondaries you would choose as well.
All right. Well, if it's sort of big blocky bricky Death Guard list, I'm assuming where I'm going to see Plague Burst Crawlers are behind these big buildings back here, and there's going to be sort of a big block of dudes behind the trees or in the crater, so that they have on the blue or the green side, so that way they have line of sight blocking, and then they have better armor or -1 to hit. So I'm assuming they're going to be sort of in that section. So one of the things is trying to show them that I'm going to try and threaten them, and I'm also going to deploy things in the order in which I would try and deploy them to kind of see if that's what they're going to do. One of the first things I would do is take bikes and slap them behind this wall over here, out wide. Actually, that's a crater there, so I would probably not put them exactly right there, because then the crater would slow them down, which defeats the whole purpose of them being over. Oh, well, I need to...
Okay, so Surround and Destroy is a hold 1, hold 2 mission.
Okay, well, that is excellent for me, because... Well, and there's an objective back here, too, so these guys can kind of sit on this objective and screen this out against the Terminators, and then I would take...
There is an objective back there. Look at
that. My Outrider squad here. Get rid of this guy. See, that's skill. I didn't even know that guy was over there, and that objective was over there, and I just dropped him in there. It's like, this is where you go. Then this squad of boys, probably... We've got trees for -1. We can try and use this wall. I don't remember if bikes get the benefits of beating craters. The crater slows them down. But I might put these guys sort of... We don't want that. So we're going to put these guys over here, sort of in this corner. Back, of course, so that way wherever the Mortarian is, they're not just sitting there saying, come charge me, so that way we die. And you get to be in my army zone. And I'm not deploying right on the objective turn 1 because I don't need to, because I don't score it turn 1. So that's something else to always think about when you're deploying, is that I don't need to stand out in the open right there up on the edge of my deployment zone where I can get charged and shot at, because there's no point. Then I have, I guess, these bikes. These boys would go sort of in the middle here. So that way, depending on... Ooh, they eat up a lot of space. I don't like that, because I need to probably put a tank in there.
So it's
probably both my tanks. Just
it's interesting that you're deploying your bikes.
But I'd want these guys to be...
Why are you deploying your bikes first and not your infantry or your tank?
It doesn't really matter where they go, in my opinion, because they're so fast and there's so many stratagems for repositioning them that it doesn't matter where they start. They're going to end up wherever I want them to be when I want them to be there. And that way, it's almost like a blind drop. Remember, we used to have those in 8th edition where you had things that you dropped automatically, no matter what the game was, to hide what you really wanted. And so, if I'm fighting a Death Guard list, and I want to see where the Plague Birch Crawlers are going, I want to see, if I'm out dropping them to Morty, where's the Morty going? Where are the Poxwalkers? I want to kind of see where those things are. And like I said, for me, the bikes, they're blind drops because they can be wherever I need them to be.
I think what this means is that the bikes going first, it reveals the lowest amount of information possible to your opponent, because they can be someplace very different on turn 1 or even before the game begins.
So yeah, these guys would end up in this general area over here. It's just kind of hard to judge distance because I'm using the computer, whereas if I was actually playing, I would be able to kind of get a better scope. But basically, I'd hide these guys over here. I'd hide these guys over here, showing my opponent that I want to spread them out, because with a lot of armies, they don't want to be spread out. They want to sit in their little bubble, their little buff bubble, and be that really big punchy fist, and punch me right in my face. And I'm going to be like, well, I don't want that, so I'm going to force you to spread out. At this point, I probably need to start thinking about the middle of the board, because I don't really want to drop. This is one of those games because I only have so many troop choices and there's so many objectives. I don't want to throw away OBSEC, which my bikes are also OBSEC, which is why I'm trying to hide them behind things. Like, they at least are getting -1 cover over here. They're completely obscured back here. But these guys, like, I have these incursors. Like, if there's nothing over here on this side of the board where there's an objective next to a crater, if they just have, like, a squad of dudes, Poxwalkers or something, to guard that objective, and the rest of their army deploys behind the big buildings, then I'm going to drop these incursors over here and go push that objective turn 1.
The enemy deployment zone, right?
Right. So I'll probably, and I might just drop them on this crater, so that way, if I don't go first, they're going to have the 2-up save, and they're in the crater. And put them right on the edge so they get the benefit, but then they can move out. They're not getting the huge negatives. Or, I can put them in this building or over behind this wall where they're going to get -1 to hit if they get shot at from the opposite end of the board. So I'm just kind of, I would wait to see if that's a play as possible, which is why I'm holding off on them right now. Actually, you know what? Radicators are probably going to, the tanks are the key thing. So I'm gonna put these guys. Ooh, I don't want to be in the actual building
very
because
important
I can get shot
not
at.
to touch the
Not the rules,
obscuring terrain. So this looks like it might be an issue here. Is you're gonna have to hang one of their butts out a little bit.
There is that corner over there. I mean, this is one of those points where, like, yeah, maybe I can go, depending on what's over there. And again, it depends on, if they have a bunch of Mephitic Blight Haulers, then yeah, I'm a lot more concerned about their butt hanging out. If those things aren't there, then it's like, okay, the Plague Burst Crawler can shoot me anyway, so it doesn't really matter if my butt hangs out. What matters is that there's this maximum distance between me and Mortarion. So, you drop those guys there in the middle, so that way, depending on if they favor a flank or not, they're there. You drop these guys in this little bit where they're not touching it, but there's that nice little pocket for them to hide in. So that way, it looked like there was a nice little pocket for them to hide in.
I'd be confident that we could get 3.
But that way, they're sort of,
and you get a little bit of room back to screen against Morty.
This might be one where I put my Inceptors in Deep Strike with my company vets and my drop pod, depending on how hoardy the Death Company or the Death Guard guy is, just so that they have that in the back of their mind of, okay, wherever my Terminators go, the next turn there's going to be Inceptors, depending on who's going first, who's going second. This is where I'd like to be able to go second, because I'm deploying very defensively, and I want to see where their Terminators go, so I can drop Inceptors on top of them. And I want them to know that I'm going to do that.
Drop pod are declared in strategic reserves, understandable.
Yep, and these guys, the Blade Guard, are in the Impulsor, so they're also not going on the board. And then, so the Tech Marine I have here, he's going to come in here with the vehicles, because that's where he's supposed to be. And, you position him in such a way that he's, within 3 inches of these guys, and he's within 3 inches of this, and he's not touching the thing, so that way he can't be seen, and he can't be targeted unless you're literally right in front of him. I would probably like to try and sneak the Apothecary in here, too, since this is where, like, the meat stuff is. And that's one of those things where, like, I'd be a better judge of distance and space.
It's a really like, I'd put it probably somewhere like that, maybe. It just kind of would depend on what direction the opponent tends to be favoring in this deployment. And in all honesty, it may be better to put them on this side, because if you swing around and look at the perspective from the opponent's side, this is actually really hard to see stuff. Like, I can barely see that Gladiator's butt sticking out. I'd have to turn off the deployment zones to do that. But,
yeah, and then there's that objective there.
So someone deploying in his backfield is going to have a hard time seeing this side of the board vice this side of the board. So I think that's one of the things we can pick up about this is, what your firing lanes are going to look like and what your opponent line of sight is on going to be expected to be on turn 1. And the faster your opponent is, the harder that is to figure. So, which is one of the things that's good about Ravenwing, because they can just move past all of this without that much effort.
And I think at this point, because this is starting to get pretty crowded, I don't think I could put Samael there, which is where I'd probably like him to be, but he is so fast because he auto advances 6. I think just for the sake of keeping him out of sight and keeping him relatively safe, I'm going to try and drop him. My game froze. Drop him in this corner back here. Because if he's there, let's see, what's 20 inches from there? Oh, yeah, he's going... Turn 1, he's in the middle of the board, so that turn 2, he's reacting
he can get his,
whatever's happening there.
If you want to move your Impulsor up and then jump guard out, then he could jump to the middle of the board and be screened by the Blade Guard.
And then he actually has a 32-inch threat range in terms of his buffs and stuff because of... so he technically can get all the way over here in 1 turn if he really wanted to.
Yep.
So, he can hide in that corner, and it's not...
I agree. I think that's right.
So, go back in that corner.
In the center, like, it would be better to kind of put it there, but to give... better range of threat, but that is where, like, this stuff has to go there. So that is, and he's got enough speed to make it. Also, co-deploying him with those spikes is a good idea, because it's going to let him use his command phase buff to make them reroll all hits on turn 1.
Yep. And one of the other sort of, into my head, one of the other mental mind games of it is that if I hide him in that corner away from the Eradicators or away from the Blade Guard, away from all that stuff, if you don't play Dark Angels all the time and you don't know how fast he actually is, does that guy look like a threat to you all the way over in that corner?
Unless you're, like, all the way up here, right? But yeah, he will be a force multiplier for those Eradicators. So if those Eradicators move up, he just jumps out, and all of a sudden he's screened by Blade Guard and those Eradicators, and he's giving them reroll ones to hit on the stuff that they're going to be trying to target, which basically would be this area of the board right here, is where you've set your Eradicators up to try and control. All right, what's got next?
I think at this
we basically got the Intercessors.
This is where I'll make big mistakes, because again, like if I'm fighting Mortarion, like this is like there's no fast Mortarion, like this is a beautiful spot for Intercessors, because they're going to have they're on top of an objective, they've got +1 cover, they can move if they have to, they can move to another objective, but that's dangerous right there. And there really isn't anything. I feel light over here because I just have some bikes hiding in the corner trying to live on a 5-up invuln or a 4-up invuln. If I do, actually, I don't know if they can take high speed focus, because I think that's just for vehicles now. But they're living on their 5-up invuln life and their T5 life and the -1 to hit life. And these guys don't have that. Although being in the woods. Oh yeah, and these are actually assault Intercessors, so they want to kind of punch.
This piece of terrain right here. This big vertical wall is kind of what's going to help you out here. So if you put them at the front of this, then yeah, there is a line of sight to them from this fire lane here. But well, if you got Plague Burst Crawlers, yeah, it's I hate Plague Burst Crawlers. They are so frustrating.
And an important thing and I am going to try and deploy them back as far as I can. And an interesting change, and this is a TO's choice, and this is based on his years of actual military service and combat fighting. He told everybody in the packet, he's like, according to rules as written, dense cover works on line of sight ignoring guns. And he was like, this is dumb. That's not how it actually works. So in my tournament, if you have a Blade Burst Crawler and you shoot at these guys in the woods, you don't suffer -1 to hit them, because that doesn't make sense to me, and I don't like it, and we're not going to use it. And he was very open about it, and he's made it very well known that that's what the ruling is. I'm assuming somebody isn't going to read it and get kind of upset, but that'll be one person out of looking at a lot of people going to this event, like 20 people.
To set the rules.
One person out of 20.
The front line's been very clear about
bro,
that.
You should have.
So yeah. Okay. I'm not sure.
And that'll make the Plague Burst Crawlers very powerful, though, because they're not going to have that -1.
Back here, I kind of would have put them up another couple inches, just because I want to make sure that on turn 1 I get to post up behind this board right here. That's what I think I would do.
Oh, you get to the wall,
because right now you're looking at.
I'm just letting you in my head. But the thing that I'm seeing, though, is that I'm seeing a Mortarion or something here, and he's going to end up behind this ruin where he's threatening this center objective, and he's threatening this one by the crater. And so being here and being there just means they're going to get killed, and there might not even be that fast of a speed bump. At least in my head, that's what I would see, because Mortarion's either going to be hiding behind this so he doesn't get shot turn 1 there. Does
Mortarion have enough,
or he's going to be hiding behind
to
this
ignore the obscuring terrain?
He's going to be, but you still have to physically see him, and that's the thing, is I don't know how, in this scenario, I don't know how, because this one at least is solid, right? This one looks solid, so there aren't windows. So if his wings are small enough to fit behind that, he's not getting shot at, even if he is whatever, because I just can't see him. You don't just get to ignore, right? There's that misconception some people have, like, oh, well, he's 18 wounds, so I can just see him all the time, and it's like, not if there's a giant solid wall. So that might actually force him to be back here behind.
Okay, so we went and grabbed a Mortarion model from a friendly local Steam store, and that is, it's going to be hard to hide him anywhere you're out on the board. He's a big boy. He is a big boy.
And so I guess that comes down to the TO in your local area. If a lot of people play with Mortarion or other significantly large models like him, and TO knows that, and people hear, and he's got people in his ear, and fair enough. Again, like we mentioned earlier, people are bringing their cool toys. You know what I don't want to do turn 1? But do that. Move him right off the board and go, well, that was cool getting to put him, bring him and show him off to everybody.
Yep.
He is now dead.
Yeah, most places are going to have terrain that can hide something like that. Like a Nova L may be able to, but once again, it's a Mortarion. You know, he's hard to kill. You see, he has 18 wounds, so he's not going to be able to. Oh yeah, if you can see him even through obscuring terrain, you're going to be able to shoot him. And yeah, all right. So okay, is this the okay? So you've still got your Incursors to put out, I think.
Yeah, and they will be, as I mentioned, that they're sort of a flex pick for trying to score different objectives and pushing objectives. So I might put them over here to sort of sit on this objective in case I need them and block out space because, right, a lot of these here bikes are not going to be there going forward. Right, they're clearing out, so something needs to sit on this objective. So it can be these guys, you know, you just plop them back here hiding. All right, they're not going to go around this wall through the crater because it'll slow them down. They can just sit there. If you know they're boxing out this corner, they're boxing out over here. If something drops in to try and kill them and fails their charge, you just pick them up and move them away. And then you know they're just a good flex. You know they're good for blocking out a corner of the board, a quarter of the board. And when you need them to go do something else, you can just pick them up and put them there the next turn. Within reason, right? I can't deploy off my opponent's turn board edge, but you know I can go into the deployment zone after turn, you know, on turn 3. So like I can come threaten this objective. If Mortarion leaves this objective and you know goes running off over here, you know they just slip in right there and go, oh, now we're going to take this objective. So there's a lot of I'm a movement shenanigans kind of guy, so that's what I like about Phobos is that it gives me movement shenanigans.
Okay. So
that people might not expect because they don't expect people to spend command points.
So let's look at so this is basically the conclusion of your deployment. So let's look at how this is going to work out. So I think that this is a logical place for the Mortarion to go because he's probably going to be one of the last things that gets put down. And in this case, putting him on the side is good because he's going to want to be well away from those rerolling everything attack bikes that everyone knows about because John Lennon talks about it all the time. And also, your Eradicators have a what's the range on those things? 30.
I think it's 24. I think all that stuff's 24, unfortunately. So yeah, I gotta move close.
So they're within 35. So okay. if Mortarion moves up, he's gonna have to face the Eradicators, and then the Valiant's gonna be able to pop out like this, and then get a shot on him. But Mortarion, you know, if he's banking everything on slinging himself forward with warp time and coming into this side of the board, then yeah, I would agree that I think that moving stuff out here is probably not the right choice because you're just going to give them something to charge. So in that case, hell, even you know moving your bikes this way to provide a screen against your tank might be a good choice.
Or even having the Assault Intercessors over here by the Apothecaries that have feel no pain for when they do get shot at, if they're blocking off that little bit, that little area. And because then they can just move forward and press this objective that's behind this ruin if they're closer to the middle. And that's where I said, like, the infantry are coming on last, and just kind of looking at it, it's like, I could see myself making bad choices and getting them killed when I really don't need to. But part of that's because I saved them for last, and they're 100-point units, so, you know, they're not the Valiant, they're not the Impulsor with a bunch of dudes inside. So I was like, if I have to make a choice of putting something in a bad spot and it dies as a consequence,
so I think I'm gonna disagree with you there. I think that they are honestly more valuable than the Valiant because like the relative value, like in turn 1, yeah, it's a 100-point unit, but in turn 4, you would rather have those 5 intercessors than you would the Valiant, I think. So I think that and that's where I think maybe where the Incursors are going to be really valuable because you can just drop them into the ultimate safe place, which is off the freaking board, and bring them in later. Especially, like let's look. How many of these are within? Like, so this objective is basically within 9 inches of the board edge, right? So you can move them. So you can bring them in 6 inches off the board edge. You're not quite going to be able to get within range.
Well, and this is where I think Eliminators have a place because you can do this with Eliminators, and you can give Eliminators an option where they can move after they shoot. So you bring them in off the board edge, they shoot at something, and then they move on top of the objective.
So that was not legal in 8th edition, and I don't know if the FAQs have been updated because like all of the stuff that you could, that basically permitted movement after arrival from strategic reserves was not allowed. For example, like you couldn't warp time or quicken or twilight pathways because of those types of shenanigans. Because then like, oh hey, I've got a 9-inch deep strike charge. Well, I'm just going to quicken and move myself up to 1.2 inches away, and now I can't fail that charge. And I was guilty of it too. I was using it with racks to like redeploy racks with black corn Utopians and shoot their little gun and fire and fade onto objectives. So I don't know if that's permitted. I would just be careful. We'd have to look.
Well, because there was a point where you could, and they had to FAQ it so that you couldn't. So, and that's the problem is that I played long enough that it's like I remember when I used to be able to do that. And even then, even if I have to wait a turn, that's still not that bad. It's like I'm going to deploy in a corner, shoot you, and then the next turn I'm going to move, shoot you again, move again, and I think you can still charge after you do that. So, like Eliminators, you don't necessarily want to charge with them, but if it's it's a small objective holding thing that's not supposed to really do anything other than that. All right, Eliminators are still Primaris Marines, and if it's turn 3, they got -1 on their basic attacks, and they're going to have 3 attacks each.
For sure.
4 on the sergeant.
Yeah, they'll go in there and they'll clear out, 5 guardsmen or 5 gaunts or something like that. Yeah, they can bully a tiny little objective sitter off, or a lot of Eldar players now are bringing a small detachment of Dark Eldar with a Court of the Archon. So just like 3 or 4 little just little single model character or non-character single model non-character infantry units to be objective monkeys and action monkeys. And you will definitely be able to kick one of those little guys off. So all right, okay, so I think what you're looking to do here is if Mortarion ends up in this corner like this, you're going to refuse a flank. So you're going to create yourself a little screen and then cede this section of the board to him. And then move up here. Now, what he's probably going to want you to do is shoot everything into Mortarion, because once again, it's Mortarion, and you kind of have to. But I think one of the things your priorities here, and we haven't really talked about objectives yet, and without knowing what the opponent's army is, because we're really kind of focusing on the U here. And we talked a bit in the list description phase about what your objective plans are. But I think what you need to focus on here is establishing some sort of superiority. So whether it's movement superiority or fire superiority. So if they've got a lot of fast units, you need to focus on killing their fast units, right? If they've got a lot of, if they happen to expose those, the Plague Burst Crawlers, put the Valiant into the Plague Burst Crawlers, right? You need to, like, especially if you're playing a kind of defensive game, refuse this flank, don't play into Morty, and then just kind of move away from that. Use these fast guys over here to boost up the board, and a lot of the Death Guard players are going to be using small units of Poxwalkers because they have a objective called Spread the Plague, where they just get points for walking around in their backfield. Not today. Not today with Ravenwing bikes. So that is and this looks like a fairly reasonable deployment for a lot of different scenarios. You've got kind of a central brick, and you've got 2 what the Zulu would call the horns, right? You've got 2 fast cavalry units on your outside that can kind of maneuver to respond. And as long as you don't overcommit one side and just try and conserve your bodies for turn 2 and turn 3, then I think you might be in a good spot.
Yeah, and if Mortarion's over here,
where's that?
I'll show you where that drop pod's going to go. It's gonna go go right over there. As far as I possibly can.
I would expect that he's probably gonna have some units over here sit on this objective. So if you can get it over there, then that's great. But if you have to put it like over here, that would kind of deny you the whole line breaker thing. But you may be able, that may actually be a reason to wait a turn. Right, and then let your bikes get in there and skirmish off.
I'm down with that.
So you can get your drop pod in.
Because a lot of times, what I found is actually valuable for me, especially if I'm taking scramblers, especially if the enemy's deployment zone is really packed in, is I just take one. Like I take these assault intercessors or the incursors. I'm not planning on moving them. I drop my deployment zone one first. Just go. I drop into my deployment zone. The drop pod gives me the option to do which I think most people would probably agree is the hardest one, which is turn one, get in their deployment zone and drop one in theirs, because you got to fight your way across the board to do it otherwise, or you got to take a unit that you probably don't want to have just sit there and be an action unit, because it's like Terminators or Inceptors or something like that. And so that's where having that little drop pod with dudes in it is good for doing that. But it's not always on. It's not turn one, deep strike in, do the thing is not always an option. And so that's why having these other infantry units.
Yeah, against the lead army, it's going to be a good choice. If there's 100 bodies on that side of the board, you may want to pick a different secondary. And also, Dawn of War is kind of a hard one to do that. Like, I think it's a better choice if you're playing like a Hammer and Anvil or the Search and Destroy style deployments, where they just have so much ground to cover and so much ground to screen out. Here, it's not that hard to screen this out.
Yeah.
So okay. Well, I think we've been going for a bit, so I think that I'd like to call it here, and let's just stop with this one description. I think that this is a good way to kind of visualize the tactics and the things that we're discussing. So, if you have any comments, please let us know how you feel about this. If you any suggestions on what you'd like to see or how you'd like it to improve. Bailey, what do you think?
Yeah, totally. Leave comments below. Message. On this video, we have a contact section on the Dank List Wargaming website, which is linked in the description. You can contact us there, and just let us know what you think. We love hearing feedback from people. If you're wherever this is linked, to Twitter, Facebook, Discord, comment there, because I drop this in the Dark Angels Discord that I'm in. I tweet it. I drop it in different Facebook groups. So wherever you're hearing this, just leave us a comment. You might make it onto the next monthly show, because we always have a fan interaction section. And yes, please let us know if you like this, because this does take a lot of time to plan. It takes a lot of time to edit, but if it helps people visualize what we're talking about, and you find it very helpful, we will do it, because that's the whole point, right? We're doing this to help other people, and if it helps, we'll do it. If it's a distraction, if it's not working, then we'll try something else. But I think this is a pretty cool way to do it, without considering the fact that like Heath lives, 5 time zones away from me, and we just can't get into the same room and sit there and move our models around like we probably would like to do. But this is a good substitute for that, since we can't. But yeah, this is pretty cool. I was really excited to try this.
We can we're trying to focus in this case on like one list and how you're going to respond to that, and I think there's value in that, in being able to say, okay, what is my pre-planned response for these various types of scenarios? I'm going to need to do this type of thing. This is the secondaries I like to take. Here's how I'm planning on moving my first turn to get objectives. And like I said, with different meta archetypes, you can kind of say, okay, well, this kind of feels more like this, so I'm going to go with plan Alpha 1 or Bravo 3, right? And that kind of I have done that. I have written flowcharts. In this situation, do this. This is your best pick, and then. If you have, one of the things we like to say in the military was, a plan is a place you start deviating from, right? So don't subscribe to it. It's not a suicide pact, but if you've automated all that brain power ahead of time, then when you're on round 3 or round 5 of your tournament, you will potentially be less mentally zonked than your opponent, and decision fatigue is a real thing. My first GT I played in 8th edition, I tied my last game on the first day, because I was so zorched from my second game playing against Pablo Martinez from Frontline that I was I made a couple of stupid mistakes, and I tied a game that I should have won, and that robbed me my ability to get higher up in the standings than I should have done. But anyway. So that's all we got for you this week. And once again, bonus episode's kind of long, but we'll see how it ends up. And if you got any comments, feedback, or requests, please feel free to leave them below. Hit us up. So once again, this has been Heath with Team Table War Hawaii.